Okay, let's let it run. Will you put the recording on, Neil? Okay, cool.
Okay, so we're looking at the first shared function that it calls here, which is the integration option get. And this is using the data provider to go and retrieve the integration options from the database.
Mm-hmm. And what are those integration options, just if you had to summarize?
Basically, it will be the options used that it will require to connect to Snow. So
and where do we set them? Oh, in the integration options table. Okay.
Yeah, so the int option table.
I'll show you where that is in the front end.
You know where that is there.
Mm.
So look for it in the front end, or do you want to do it
You can show it if it's close. It's on the video. Yeah, that's your iExpress.
Yeah. Let's connect to it quickly. Oops. Getting so slow lately.
Is that to the cloud that it's slow?
Yeah, it seems fine now. Just took a little while to get going.
On ITSM integration tools.
Oh, yes. Set up integration options.
No.
So this is where they are.
Oh, there. Snow name, user, that, okay.
These are just other options that are used in other places, but those are for the catalog integration.
But we'll get to those later. Okay. Cool,
okay,
thanks.
So
it's not where I thought they were, so I'm glad you showed us.
Okay. Yeah, let's just get those 4 fields from the int option table, then it sets it into...
Okay, let me just read from the top. So it's integration option, what's that green thing now? Integration option, is like new integration option. Is that another object you created?
Yeah, it's the class that we created to store the integration options.
So it's the same name as the function?
The function is called integration option get.
Oh, okay. And that's returning that object.
Yeah, that returns an integration option object.
And so inside it you declare an object that you're going to populate and then pass it back to itself and then return that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's... I don't know if that was that obvious to you guys, because it wasn't obvious to me. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so the internal is the same as private or public, but the internal is used for basically classes that are only accessible within this project. So it's if you say private, it's only accessible within this class, but then I can't call it from another class within this project. So internal means I can call it from other classes in the same namespace, but not from external. There's an internal function. And then static, we use a lot with library functions and shared functions like this. Basically what that means is you can call this method without creating an instance of this class. So if I go look at my...
Wait, what does that mean in English? I can call this method...
I'm going to show you exactly what it means. So normally if you have this class called shared, and that's got an integration option get function. Now, if you want to call that, you'll have to go and create that class. So you'll say shared, obj shared
Equals new class.
Share. And then from there, okay, I'll have. It's gonna. No, don't worry about why it's bitching. It's just because I created it as static, so you can't actually do this. But this is how we do it normally.
Can't you do that?
Hey?
Why can't you do that? What you've done? I
Because
didn't
I created
expect
it as static. I'm just showing you the difference.
Oh, so when you do static, it actually prevents you from doing it.
So this is how you would normally have to do it. So you create that new one and everything. But now I've declared this whole class as static, so the whole thing you can use directly. So you can see I haven't created an instance to it, but I can just call the function in that directly. So I just say shared.integration options get, and then it calls it.
Is Björn's video
Static
static
class.
for you guys as well? Is his mic dropping in and out for you, or is it just for me?
It's fine for me.
Okay, so then the recording will be fine. So Björn, so when you say static, then you can't use it like that. You're actually stopping it from working like that. Is that what you're saying as well?
Yeah, if we go to, I mean, you can. I've declared the whole class as static, so the whole class you can't create an instance of it.
No, that makes sense though, because we don't want to create classes. We want to just use it as
using it as a library. So I mean, if you look at our shared library, the new one, it's also everything static in there, and that's so you don't have to create an instance to it. So if you go look in here, just go back in there. Like you can see, I'm calling my SQL library here, but I'm not creating an instance of it ever. I just call the function directly in it.
So all of that's static as well.
We didn't hear you, Brian.
No, I think we're getting affected by some speed issues. Can you hear me now, or is it still gone?
Yeah.
Oh, we can hear you now.
I think.
Connection information message.
Yeah, let me just see if it's on our network. Okay, you can carry on. I'll check it while we're busy.
Okay, so do we understand everything in this function then?
So let me just start from the top. Okay, so it's been called. So to get the options, then you're saying, okay, so you're passing the data provider again. And then you're creating a new data table. That data table is part of what namespace?
You dropped off, Brian.
It's system.data.
Okay, so that's part of the, and then you're going to have a string. Just get rid of and then integration option. Then you're creating an object type that you use everywhere. Why did you create an object type just for that? Is it more efficient? That integration object type.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you can create like a little class with some properties on it, or you can like go and pass like these around all over the place. So it's just easier to combine them into one.
Yeah, because you told me that you started doing that because your callings became so much simpler. You could just pass one thing, and it was easier to read the code. Okay, so go back to where it was. Okay. Yeah, there. Okay, so because you want to just pass a single thing, you create that whole thing, and then you're going to get. Okay, let me just see. Then you're using your data provider object, which is actually your web service in that case.
Yeah.
So on the web service, you calling that. So this is now on the far computer. You're saying data table get, and you're passing it that.
Yeah.
And that database object info is just which database to go and get it from. It's not connection shit or anything like that, or is it?
No, it will be this. It'll be
Okay,
the
so-
database server, database name, user, and database password.
So does that web service then can make a new connection to whatever database you need each time? It doesn't just serve one database.
Yeah, so it's a shared data provider. So it's
Does
a
it
cloud
work
server, one data provider, and you can use it for multiple, whoever wants to access it.
And when we in our normal application framework, those DLLs they do the same thing. They're generic, hey. There's not one per application. There's just one, and all applications share it, hey.
Well, not. I mean, they're all over the place. It's not exactly the same. Each
Oh,
application that references one of those will have its own one.
Okay, so then the web service is very different because it's generic.
Yeah.
Okay, so but then it'll have overhead for making that connection each time. But I mean the objects.
The other ones also make a connection each time. You don't keep persistent connections anyway.
So it's no difference.
No.
Okay, I don't know why I've got this concept in my head that those DLLs for the platform objects that they maintain some sort of state, but they don't. No. So if we've got a grid on our application, you have to go and fetch the data for the whole grid each time. Every time you do some database stuff, it's a round trip to the database and back.
Yeah.
And it opens a new connection. It does not use. Is there any point where we don't close a connection because it's expensive? We pass the open connection around.
Disappeared there.
Is that in our object? Maybe? Yeah.
You have to try that again. We lost you.
It's not our side. It must be the internet. Although there's something that's using a lot of data. Let me just see what it is. Is there anywhere in our structure, in our objects, where we keep our connections open? We pass the open connection around for speed, because I know there is, but it can't be much.
The only time we do it is in the workflow engine, and that's for transaction purposes.
So only there. So all of this other stuff that I'm trying and find it in, I'm wasting my time because it's only in those engines.
Yeah, it's only place it passes the connection around. Just so it can execute things within the same transaction.
Okay. So then that opening and closing connections is very fast because we don't even see it.
Instantaneous.
There's no overhead or anything in doing that.
No.
Okay, so that's what was really I was battling with, is I was thinking that maybe it does that, but it doesn't. Okay, let's keep going then. So hang on. So I've got that. You've created it, and then you go and get your column data back. If you get it back, then you just go and fetch the contents of it into that object you created, and you use the encryption for the password.
Yeah.
And then you return the object that you created. Cool. So I can read that one now for the first time. I've never been able to read it before. So can everyone read it now, in all its glory? Okay. Okay. Nice. Let's go to the next one. If I can read it, you guys can read it, eh? Here we go. Okay. Cool.
Okay, so the next function it calls is data export get, and it's just getting. So it'll go and call this stored procedure, and that goes and gets all of the data that needs to be exported. So this is where all the logic sits about which records to export, and it goes and returns all of the information for export.
Okay, so we've got to document that, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, so Neil, that's the first place to deep dive it. But after this, Neil, we'll go and order I'll show you how to extract the functions, and we'll order them into the most logical execution order. I've done one for the portal builder Akash that I need to still put in, and it's sitting here right. I'm looking at it, but it still has not made its way into the wiki. Okay, cool. So, can you go back to where it calls this thing for me? Data export get. Okay, so you called your two initializers, you got your options, then you went to say, okay, give me all my data to export it. Okay, go back there again to the data export get, yeah. And there you're creating a new data table. No, data table, and then is that how you declare a new one? What's happening there? I thought you had to say new and all of that shit.
No, it's setting it here. So you can do it like this as well. Normally.
Oh, that's what I'm just seeing it. Yeah. Okay, cool.
You don't have to declare it first. It doesn't do anything for you.
Yes, it confused the shit out of me because I'm used to it. Okay, so, and then we just got some hard-coded thing that we pass it there. That is fine. We don't need it to be a variable, so it's going to be hard-coded. And then you just, I suppose you could have just put it into the call even there. You don't use it.
Yeah,
after.
you can do that as well.
So there's no need to declare that string.
Well, you need the string.
No, you can just put it straight in.
I don't like doing that.
Okay, then
Do
don't.
SQL strings because it's hard to read in here most of the time.
Yeah,
So SQL strings will generally build.
because they can be very long, and when I read code, I like to see patterns. Then I don't have to focus on what the hell's going on. So that's what you do everywhere. We're not changing it because guys, that string could be like 3 pages long. So it doesn't help putting it inside the other one.
Generally,
So-
when you have long SQL strings, though, then you know you've got problems and you should convert it into a stored procedure.
Okay.
Not like a very short select and I'll create a stored procedure rather because it's much easier to work with in this code.
Except it's hard to debug. Because you can't single step through this stored. Well, you can't single step through it anyway.
Yeah, you can't anyway. It's
Okay.
just bad in here.
So that's just getting the shit from the stored procedure and life carries on. Okay, let's get the next one.
So if you want to see what the stored procedure returns, and it, yeah,
You know, okay. Okay.
it basically just returns all of the information for all of the CIs that can be integrated.
Mm-hmm.
The column names I'm using here are the column names that are ServiceNow column names.
Mm-hmm. So you've done a select as basically.
Yeah, so select as the ServiceNow column name.
Mm-hmm. So you can imagine that procedure, what it looks like.
Yeah, it's quite fun.
Yeah. It's just one level off a nuclear explosion. Okay. Cool, I'm happy with that.
Okay, so then model makes does pretty much the same thing, but it just gets the models to be integrated.
Okay, so here you need to know the business case, Neil, and we need to document it. So model, there are a couple
Model
of
makes
things.
is actually manufacturer. It's a
Yeah.
crap name in our base.
And you're getting them from outside.
Yeah.
And because you need to know what we're the master of and what they're the master of. So they're the masters of locations, we're the master of model makes. So this is why we're leading on this one, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Master meaning like we handle the model makes and they handle locations.
Yeah, so if there's going to be a new location, they'll create it and we need to follow. If there's going to be a new manufacturer,
new
we create
manufacturer
it.
or model, then we go and create it.
And they follow.
Yeah.
Okay, so without that
model
business
gets
knowledge,
pretty
you
much the
won't
same.
Sorry, which one? So that's models?
Model. This is model, so that's pretty much the same thing. Again.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they're in separate subroutines, because if you need to do something fancy, then it's sitting in its little area.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oops.
It's nice when you're dealing with the easy code. You can feel my headache disappearing.
Just trying to get back to my code. Somehow the back button's not working. Okay, so then it just checks if it's bulk and processes bulk integration. We don't need to worry about that too much.
No, we're not going to waste time on bulk now. We'll just skip bulk.
We don't really use it. It should actually be removed from here.
What,
I didn't even
no,
use
no.
it when we did the new take on. I just ran it.
Look, it's going to, next time if we do a new client, this is the first thing I'm going to go for is that bulk. Okay.
Yeah.
In the test environment.
Mission to import the bulk stuff as well, but there's a whole process on it.
Sorry, it's a mission to
import it.
Okay.
Because it
Like,
exports
yeah,
it like per table, and each class in their system is a separate table. So you're going to go create like 20 imports on their side to go import all the data.
Look, to be honest, I don't think we will use it for ServiceNow again.
Yeah.
Because you've cracked the real-time one. We know it can do it under 2 hours. But if I do another one and I'm not confident, then I would go reach into this one and extract the code here to go and do the bulk there. So that's why I don't want to get it.
Yeah.
Okay, because we paid for it. It's sitting here, so we might as well keep it as a reference. But we're not going to go into it now. We can skip the bulk.
Okay, so the first integration runs is this process integration manufacturer. So this does the manufacturer integration. And this data table that's passed is the one that we went and retrieved earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you're going through a loop here.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I created a central function to go and get the to create a web service object, because I've got so many in the morning. Like, put it this way: for things like the manufacturer, I could have actually just like hard coded it here, but because it's just one thing. But when you're doing the classes and that's, it's actually passed as a parameter. So I created a central function that goes and creates the web service object based on the parameter you pass it. So that's what this function's doing.
Now that's pretty neat. But why do you need to do it though? I only know it once. Must I just hold on to this concept until we get a bit further, and then I'll see when you're using it?
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. It's a big switch. It's a big switch.
Yeah, it's just a big switch, and it goes and creates the right object. So it's not a very complicated thing, but I needed it as a central function because otherwise every single class here would have to have its own like integration function to go, say, integrate Netgear, integrate IP phone, integrate generator, integrate firewall.
So
don't want that.
No, you don't. I mean, we often use switches like that. Often. So now, how does this switch work? And so I'm trying to get the highest level concept of. So you are going to go and talk to a web service, okay? And you don't want your code to worry about what the web service is. You want to abstract that. So that's why you go and create an object that where you say make my object and it's this one, and then it will come back.
Me this web service, and then goes and gets it and returns it. Yeah.
And that's the advantage, that you can maintain all of your specific stuff in a central area. Okay. But now let's just go and look at this. So what object are we creating here? Or what is it that we're creating?
Creating this. I'll show you.
A reference.
Yeah, a reference to the web service.
Okay, so normally a reference, if you've got a DLL, you'll do it through your namespace, hey?
Yeah.
And
as you saw previously, when we created a reference to our own web service, we created it to data requester client.
Yes.
So on theirs, you're creating it to whatever the object is, .service now SOAP client. It's the object you're creating.
So SOAP client is built into their stuff, eh?
Yeah.
How much did you need to go into the technology of SOAP to use this?
Didn't. Not really.
You didn't. You just used it. Thank God. Okay. So you're saying knew that thing, and
so
then
this is where, like, you asked, like, how we know which one we're connecting to. So this generates the URL to it. So it's got the instance name. So that'll be CCBA or dev or one of our dev instances, whatever. It's like always starts with that instance name .servicenow.com, and then / in the table name .do, and then like in this case you don't pass WSDL.
So you just pass the table name basically, which is the CMDB_CI. Hey. Yeah. So no, this is definitely the way to do it. Except you could have put that return 0 and 2 at the end because they're all the same.
Not exactly. They're different objects. So.
They're using the created object.
Where, show me? Oh, look, there, yeah.
So this is CMDBCI.ServiceNow. This one's like CMDBCI computer.ServiceNow client. So it's a different object each time. I
You
could have
need
put the
an
return
extra-
method, but it would have been a bit more complicated.
No. Let me just read it again. Okay, I'm just reading now. So you get, so if it's case, then you go CMDB underscore CI. Now I'm talking to that, service reference, and it knows that thing exists there. And then you going obj return 0. What does that do then? What's that
It's
top line?
returning this
First one.
object. Which top line?
Yeah, the one that you're on now. That's obj return 0. Is that creating that thing?
Yeah, so they're creating that object.
You don't have to say new or anything. It just does it.
Okay, you're setting it to something, so it will be null there, and then
So that's the declaration. That's the declaration.
you can put this in one line as well if you want. It just becomes quite long.
No, it's fine. So it's just my lack of C# knowledge that's making me ask that. So I'm declaring my object, and then I'm setting it to a new instance. What's the terminology? So the top line is where I declare it, and then I set it to an instance.
It's creating a new instance of it.
Yeah, and then you're passing it.
Pass it.
Then you're reaching into a shared code to pass it.
Yeah, so I'll show you what that does now.
Okay, before you go there, just
HTTP binding, as I said before, is just the settings basically,
Mm-hmm.
and then it passes the URL, which I'm passing here. So that's pretty obvious what's happening there, I think. So it's just creating a new endpoint address object, and it's using that URL.
A new system.service model. Well, in fact, that screws my brain up. Never say it's quite obvious.
This is the same as doing like. And then you can pass in this thing.
So it wants an endpoint address. That's basically
it needs an endpoint.
object.
So I'm just creating it inline and passing because I don't really set anything on it, so I don't have to really declare it first and do anything funny with it.
Okay, just leave that one there for me. So that really helped me a lot because I was sort of flatlining there for a while, like intensive care moment there. But okay, that makes more sense now. It's easier for me to understand. But I mean, I do think that second way of writing it is correct because it's, if you look at if you know what the technology is doing, the way you had it is so much more readable than splitting it up into two. But yeah, just leave it for me then, just to document it. So this object that we're creating of type
CMDB CI.service.
Yeah, so this SOAP client, it's got two objects within it as parameters, and one is the endpoint, and the other one is the HTTP binding objects. What is that? Okay, we're going to go to the HTTP and see what it returns.
Yeah.
So it returns something specifically that SOAP one. Say.
Well, it's got. I mean, if we go back to where we...
Not SOAP, what ServiceNow wants.
ServiceNow wants, yeah. Data...
Aren't you looking for shared?
No, wait, it's in shared, yeah, that's why I'm getting confused. So if you look at our data provider initializer, that does exactly the same thing with our clients. It's passing a HTTP binding and an endpoint. And these are the settings we're setting for our HTTP binding. So if I go into their one, okay, I've set all of our standard size things in here as well. But okay, it sets the security transport. That's important. These are the custom things that were specific to their connection. So So the first thing is telling it it's using basic authentication, because that's what they use for accessing it.
Mm-hmm.
And
So there you've got a comment, set all the default service options. Can you just put in an additional thing there that ServiceNow requires specifically?
yeah.
So Neil, when you document this stuff, you've got to put in the comments and code, and it doesn't matter how much you put, so that you can read what's going on. I will document the technologies and the high level stuff, okay? You don't have to do that. You just have to focus on that you understand everything. Then, like the one thing, you'll do some of the high level stuff, but I will drive it from my side until we understand it. Look, we've only got like 3.5 weeks left together, but I'm hoping it'll get a direction later and then come out of quicker. To me, it certainly looks like it's happening quicker and quicker, but you're new to it, so you're probably still swimming. Cool. Okay. So again, you would go and extract that from the internet or whatever and test it and get it working and then say, thank God it's working now, Ebian.
Yeah, the ServiceNow stuff was quite fun to get running because they don't really tell you their documentation.
Is horrible.
It might look pretty, but it's useless.
Yeah, they give you a lot of info without context.
Yeah, and they don't even they don't really tell you how to access the thing at the end of the day.
No,
they give you a lot of info, but it's not the stuff you're looking for ever, and it's nowhere in their documentation. They just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over, and then don't give you the detail you're looking for.
It's vomit documents. No.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, it took a while to get the settings right to be able to actually connect to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
so that creates our reference to our web service.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just set the username and password on that web service's client credentials object.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm doing in this function.
Mm-hmm.
It just does it for all the different parts, same thing.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'm going to try to find out where I was again.
Let me try and help you. It was, well, no, I don't have the context.
Manufacturer.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and you were going to that HTTP thing in the middle of the call. It was in there somewhere.
So at the end of this call basically means I have a reference to the core company
table.
All of it's username and password set and everything, so I can use that to go and integrate. Then I will do a loop through the data.
Where's that company in your web references?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
There's just so many years.
Oh, does it make sense the way they've done it? Why would they split it into so many?
I think from an automation point of view, it's easier to handle.
Can you elaborate?
Table to just create its own web service, and then all you have to do is call that service's table. So, if you go and create a new field in your table, it's automatically added to your web service, and then you can go integrate to it.
That's brilliant. How do you do that?
If you have one central thing, then the integration becomes more complicated, because then you have to try to tell it which tables to use, and then you don't really have context while you're integrating.
Yeah. How do you think they do that? Because if you've got a service now and you're going to add a field to your table, then all of a sudden it's in that bloody object.
Yeah, it goes and regenerates a whole bunch of stuff in the background. That's why if you add a field to the table, it's not just done. So it takes a while.
Okay, no,
it goes and generates a whole bunch of things in the background.
Okay.
And then everything in theirs is table-based, so it makes it easier. So their forms are table-based, and so everything's really just a table.
Mm-hmm. No, it does make sense, because if you're exposing that whole environment to configure it, then you're also creating, and your web services are just following on. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Okay. So where are we now?
Okay, so this is the loop that goes through each company or each manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go and get some fields from the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is where I go and create my next object. So now each, it's hard to explain the integration using the
Why do we
generic
say
one.
object? Why all of a sudden object? Oh, that's the type. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it returns a generic object type. But, yeah, so it's hard to read it because I made these objects generic and return like this. It makes the code more hard to read, but it makes it easier to work with. I don't know, it's hard to explain. But really each the hell? I'm not using that in here. So each of the web services, they'll have different classes within them. So this get records is used to go and retrieve from the database. So you'll see there's get records. And, and then inside there, it's got. Oh, actually, I don't know how to explain this now. So there'll be like a get records class, there'll be an insert class, there'll be a delete class, and there'll be an update class. So each one you'll use to do the different operations on the table, and each one will take a parameter of another class which has like everything that you want to insert or delete or update. So no, it'd be easier to like write one out that doesn't use these generic ones. And
Let's just scroll down. Let's have a look. What's the difference between them first? Let's see if we can track
basically
it.
that's just going to create the.
Because that's another switch statement. Big switch.
Yeah, so that just goes and creates the right
object for running it.
For whichever one you're using.
Okay, let's
now this object that it's
where are they different though? Because all of these seem to be the same when you were there in that. Yeah, go to the object create request. When you scroll down, show me the differences.
Yeah.
So it's not the method that changes. It's just the name.
The same method, but from the different web service.
So there's no link between the name and the web service. You can't assume that. So the naming is, look at the naming, but that thing is similar to the name. So you basically do a case and then you're returning.
Once you say get me records from this thing because it's a string, it doesn't exist. Anyway.
If it could have done it, then you would have.
Then I would have done it in one line. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys with it there. There's no power in C# to go and bind the string into a method call. So you with the lacking of that in the code in the C# capability.
Strangely, it's actually easier to do this kind of stuff in VB. These generic.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there if you looked for it, hey? But it's going to be like, I know you can do it in C++. It's a pointer to a function. They call it I forget what the name is. It's not in VB it's called a generic, I think. But in here I don't know what it's called. But okay, let's just keep going. But understand, like to go, that other stuff is really, really hard to understand. You if you want to start using it, spend 3 days studying it first. It's I mean, I would. It's much easier to just go through a big case. Okay, and then so now we've got our object that will.
So this is a get records object. So what that object does is it sets the parameters for what you want to get. So if I go and let's just create one that's actually typed so you can see what's in there. Well, I can actually. now, and then we can use it. So if I go in here, then I can see this thing's just got a whole bunch of parameters which relate to all the fields that are in that table.
Mm-hmm.
And really what it's expecting is if you set something in here, like else I'm setting sysid, and then it will go and retrieve all the records that match that sysid. If we don't have the sysid, I'm matching it on name. So that's all that I'm doing here. So it's just to retrieve a record from their database.
So we're actually retrieving the stuff here, not updating.
Well, yeah, because I want to retrieve it first, and then I see if it exists, and I'll update it afterwards.
If it doesn't exist.
Yeah. If it doesn't exist or if it needs to be updated, then I'll.
Is that covered in this documentation here or not? Because then that is what you need to capture, Neil. So Neil, you can only, this stuff is so that you can understand what's written. Okay, so only once you can understand, then you can see, okay, what is this thing trying to do? What do I describe at the top for somebody that's coming in here? That's going to look at your description, Bien. So I'm sure you wouldn't have described it that detailed.
No.
Yeah, missing. You see, that's your job to say, it's that. So you got different levels of interpretation here. One, your basic one, can you read the code? Okay, and we couldn't. So now we're learning to read the code. Then the next level is when you're coming into this this routine, we need to say, look, it's going to go and read the description to this routine would be, or this function would be, we're coming in here to go and read all of the manufacturers and the ones that aren't there, we're going to update. So that would be, so we're going to have a loop. We're first going to read it, then we're going to loop through and compare them, and then we're going to update the different ones. So that's, and then that's the description. So you're in this thing, there's a summary section. Just go to your commenting area, Bien. Bien, I can't even focus here because you're editing in the background. I'm just worried you're going to break the bloody system and leave us with something. So you can see that summary one, okay? So underneath it, you can have the more detailed one. So just go underneath it and add the, what's the tag called for detail, Bien? Can you remember? Okay, hit return after that hash summary. Oh, there we go.
I don't really do more. I don't know.
Just hit enter and then start with it. Let's see if it. There we go. Find it.
Example permission remarks. Is that what you're thinking of?
It's remarks. Yeah, it's remarks. That remarks you can make a couple of pages long. So there's a function in Doxygen that tells you that interpret hard breaks as hard breaks. Okay, so you don't have to put that new line ship in. Okay,
yeah.
So we'll just do one together, and I'll show you, because this is the whole thing. This is where we need to document it. That's where you need to focus. So you'll do some wiki stuff for me because it's time consuming, but this is where we need to be able to understand it. So the summary must be right. So process the manufacturer's integration to ServiceNow. That's not good. Okay, so we're going to say something different there, and then in the remarks we're going to say something different again, and then that's still going to tie to bits of code here, to headings in here. So the summary must encapsulate why you're coming into this function. So processes manufacturer integration is going to say, let's see which will be a better heading for that. So I would say something to do that we've got the manufacturing information, and we have to make sure that ServiceNow is brought up to date with our manufacturers. Okay, I can't think of it now, but that's what you have to do in here. But you can see if you're writing the code, to go and put your mind into that state is very difficult, but we have to do it now to document it. And then then we have to put the right thing in remarks, and then we've got to put the right headings in the code for each one. So in the beginning it's going to be difficult because we're trying to find it, but as it works on this one, then it's going to work for Akash in So Akash at the moment has got a bit more of a difficult one because he's actually got to hit the portal framework. But the real bastard is the application framework because that's in VB and Doxygen doesn't play nicely with VB. Okay, keep going, Bien. So where were we? You were editing like crap in there. Is it back to where it was at the moment?
Yeah, just making it more readable for you, because otherwise it'll be almost impossible to explain it.
Okay.
So this is our request object. The request object, you're going to set settings that are going to filter your data, the return data when you call the get records.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me start at the top then. Okay, where are we now? I'm not totally lost again. All I knew is that we got.
That's why I don't want to leave these weird things in there because it'll take like a week to explain what's going on there. But they have to stay in the non-generic ones.
They'll be full of shit, Bishop. So you changed it from the one in green to the one below.
No, actually, that was the one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, just scroll up again. So those okay, never mind. Get the CI object for the table. So that is your requesting object. Okay, so what's in that try, starting from there? Because now I can see you stepping through. Okay, that row export data, where's that coming from?
It's coming from the data table that we.
Oh, okay. And that's we passed that. That's our data. Hey.
Yeah, so it's our list of manufacturers that we know we want to integrate.
And we're calling it export because we're exporting from ours to theirs. Okay. So then your first thing is your string foreign CMDB ID, and you're doing, that's ours, okay, that's our CMDB. So that's the ID in their system. So when we create, so when we do integration the first time, we go and write back that CMDB ID.
Yeah, so the first time this will be blank and then the name will have something in.
Yeah. So, okay, so Neil, this you need to know how the table does it. So we added a field in to be able to keep track of whether ServiceNow has got it or not. When we integrate it to ServiceNow, we write an ID from ServiceNow into that field. And that field is called probably CMDB ID or something like that.
It will be called foreign CMDB ID. The
field name, okay. So you can imagine if somebody screws around with that data, then the integration will fall over because it's getting those two from our table, and then what does it do once it's got those, Bien? Does it go and get it from the?
It goes and does a lookup from ServiceNow based on those. So if there is a currency in the BID, it sets it to that field to do the lookup, or otherwise it uses the name to do a lookup.
Okay, so that's a lookup that it's doing there.
Yeah, that's what this request object's for. It's a get records object.
Okay, and that is, you'll get that inside the yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so that's before that if statement, or just one of those, just say that it's doing a lookup somewhere. That's a lookup for me, so I can remember.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine. It's fine to say lookup. Oh, cool. Okay, so I think what we've got to do here, Neil, is that we're getting to the point where very quickly where it's overload. We need to go and read through this stuff, get familiar with it, because now we're killing Bien with questions. It's not even being able to make progress. So we need to go and catch up with all of that and then come back again and continue with it. We've got 2 sets of videos to listen to go through, to do knowledge. I don't expect you guys to do that because I'm the other 2, Kash and Angela, I'm going to summarize it to hand it to you on a plate. Okay. So yeah, so I think Bien, it's getting to the point of overload. So give us some time for this to absorb. I need to just tie some things together in my head before we continue reading with this stuff, because now you've given us a lot of stuff that you're getting to the state now where you are actually doing the integration. So I'm stopping at the meat, but I'm doing it on purpose because just to get you, I've had to learn a lot. And I'm sure Neil, you're the same. You want to solidify what you've got so that we don't interrupt you that much for the next points. That's why the questions have become like more anal. So yeah, I think that's a good point to stop this one. So let's if you can just, hopefully you haven't broken it so that we can, in order to make it simple for us to read. No,
it won't break it. I'll actually just finish that on this function so we can carry on talking about it. Doesn't need all those generic things in it really, so I'm just busy making it work a bit easier or easier to read.
Okay, that'll help.
But all of these funny ones will be in the where it actually does the CI integration and needs those things because they're using different objects depending on which one you're integrating.
But then at least we've got one simple one and one complex.
Yeah, so this simple one, at least you'll see what it is, and then you can see from here with the other one, like how it calls the methods generically.
Yes. So, I mean, that's great. So, okay, guys, any specific questions at the moment? Are you all sitting in the overload state? I suppose, Angela, you won't be as bad as I am.
Yeah, it's not as bad, but I'm overloading with what's going on.
Okay, so you're the guy that's next, okay, on your application. So I think we will just have a little bit of a break. I want to sort out how I store these videos. And how I tag them, and then that'll take me about half an hour, and then we'll start with yours, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Bien. Neil, will you then save it, and then I'll tell you where to put the videos. Thanks. Okay. Cheers. Thanks, Bien. Okay.
Cheers.